Hey guys, in the last video we talked about all of the major events that happen during in-doc phase, and in this video we're going to be talking about all of the events that happen during junior officer candidate phase or JOC phase. The first event that you have, and something that you will have at the very beginning of every single phase of training, is a PRT. So for in-doc phase you have the IST, and for JOC phase you have something called the in-PRT. When you're in senior officer candidate phase or SOC phase, you'll have the mid PRT, and then when you're in candidate officer phase, you'll have the out PRT. For the in PRT, you have to achieve in every category and overall at minimum a satisfactory high. Once you are done with the in PRT, the rest of JOC phase is pretty cake compared to in-doc phase. What I would say is that if you have to rank each phase of training by level of difficulty, I would say it's in-doc phase, senior officer candidate phase, JOC phase, and then candidate officer phase. Maybe you could switch candidate officer phase and JOC phase depending on what your job is in candio phase. You're going from what in my opinion is the hardest phase of training into what in my opinion is the easiest phase of training. So after you complete RLP and you get pinned and all of that good stuff, just know that you can take like a breath. Now, what's going to start happening is you're going to start having more rigorous drill practice because you're going to be gearing up for a drill competition. Everybody who's in JOC phase is in one class broken down into two companies, and you're going to have one company compete against the other company. So a lot of times what will happen is there will be a lot of competition between two companies, but just remember that you're all one class. It doesn't really matter which company you're in. A lot of what's going to happen at drill is primarily just a lot of RPT. A lot of times your drill instructors and chiefs are just going to use drill as an excuse to push you. Honestly, a lot of times going to drill, I wouldn't always know if we were actually going to drill to practice or if we were going to drill to do burpees or push-ups or something. Now, in my company, I was actually pretty fortunate. I had a drill instructor who was pretty focused on doing drill practice rather than pushing us. But whenever we messed up as a company, they would do remedial physical training as a way to correct that kind of behavior. And to be completely honest, a lot of OCS is just about seeing how you handle being under pressure. In my first video in this, before you go to OCS, watch this series, I talk about how you have to hold your hand out like this in drill. And then if you can't, then they're going to push you for it because they're going to say the only reason you can't do this is because you're not physically strong enough, so we need to build you physically. JOC phase isn't difficult in the same way that in-doc phase is difficult, but I will say JOC phase was personally my least favorite phase because when you're doing push-ups, at least you're not falling asleep. But when you're just standing there holding your rifle and just holding as still as you possibly can, it takes all, or at least it took all of my willpower to not fall asleep standing up. Now, when it comes to drill itself, there are 6 positions that are of some greater significance than the other positions. The first 2 are the person who's the drill leader. They're going to be the ones who are not actually in the formation, but they will have to execute a series of movements and they will have to call out commands. The next position is the guidon, who will hold the flag, and they will be in charge of basically just carrying the flag all the way until you get through to candidate officer phase. And so if you take that position to make it easier for yourself while you're in drill, just know that you have to be the person to carry the guidon everywhere. And sometimes the guidon gets a little bit heavy when you have to hold it during drill. The other 4 positions are the squad leaders. Being the squad leader is great because you're all the way on the right-hand side. And there are several times when the people on the right-hand side have to do some adjustments before the person to their left can make similar adjustments. So there's going to be several times where people are holding their arms out like this, waiting for the person to their right to finish adjusting, and then they bring their arm down, and then the person to their left who was holding their arm, they have to do certain adjustments to make sure that they're lined up perfectly, both with their column in front of them and with the rest of their row, making sure that they're lined up perfectly with their row. And then once they've adjusted, then they can drop their arm. So if you're way on the left-hand side, you're going to have to be holding your hand up for so long, and it's going to get exhausting. So I was really happy to be a squad leader specifically a squad leader for squad 2. Squad 1 has the guidon who will end up taking the position to the right of the squad leader, and so the squad leader will still have to wait for the guidon to adjust, and they will have to keep their arm up. However, once the person that is in front of you has taken their arm down and the person to the right of you has taken their arm down, you can then adjust. The closer you are to the front and the closer you are to the right, the better off you will be as far as how long you have to hold your arm out. But if you're not one of the squad leaders or the guidon or the person who is the drill body, then you will be arranged by height from tallest to shortest, moving right to left. If you are a squad leader, the squad leaders are not arranged by height. You have to volunteer. One of the things that your drill instructors will talk to you about is, what's the point of drill? Why do we study drill? And the reason why we do it is because drill requires absolute precision. You have to have every movement perfectly executed every single time to do well in drill. And so to achieve this, you have to be the kind of person who is disciplined enough to practice even when you're tired, even when you're sore, even when you don't want to. Another purpose that drill serves is testing how badly you really want this. If you're the kind of person who can't put up with doing drill for 3 weeks, are you the kind of person who's going to persevere when you are under stress pretty much 24/7? If you are willing to put up with the pushes that you will endure, that's another test that you will pass on your journey to becoming a naval officer. In addition to drill, you will also be taking classes. One of the classes is going to be a Navy Customs and Cultures class, and then another class is going to be an Engineering and Weapons class. You will have both midterm and final exams during junior officer candidate phase. I don't recall exactly, but I think that one of the classes, the Navy Customs and Cultures class, technically starts before junior officer candidate phase, but I could be mistaken there. I do know that both of the exams for each of those classes is going to happen during JOC phase. Now, to do well on these exams, I strongly recommend looking at the learning objectives at the beginning of each lecture, because the exam questions are taken from those learning objectives. In addition to that, students do develop study guides from previous classes, but if you decide to look for and utilize any gouge that you find, just know that there could be some incorrect gouge that's on other classes' study guides. You live by the gouge, you die by the gouge. And it's technically considered an academic violation if you utilize a different class's study guide. What you will have when you are a junior officer candidate is an academic liaison or an academic body, and it is their job to create and disperse any study guides that you guys want to use, and you need to make sure that it has your class's information on it. If you're class 0821, then you need to make sure that it says that on the study guide for your class, that your study body, your academic body disperses to you guys. That's okay. The exams themselves for these two courses are multiple choice. They're really not that bad. The hardest part about the classes is staying awake, at least for JOC phase. Once you get to senior officer candidate phase, the classes themselves, the actual content is harder, but as far as the first two courses that you take, it's pretty easy. Staying awake is definitely a challenge, but fortunately your instructors will usually allow you to stand up in the back of the classroom to stay awake. You can also, if you're really struggling, walk out of the classroom and go refill your canteen, or you can go and use the head and maybe set a timer on your watch for like 4 minutes and then get out of the bathroom and get back to class. You know, you have to pee, you gotta pee. Okay, so you've done your NPRT, you've done your exams for Navy Customs and Cultures and Engineering and Weapons, and you have done your drill competition, and hopefully if you're lucky, you got the drill ribbon to put on your guidon and you can be really proud of it. The very last thing that you have to do for JOC phase is something called the 6-week Khaki inspection. 6th week, the inspection is based off of how you wear your khakis, and if you just follow the guidance from the OCR, then you'll do fine as far as that is concerned. The knowledge portion does involve a series of asking you some questions from Appendix Charlie, and as long as you can answer those questions, you'll do fine. You should know the 15 leadership traits in order, but for me, I memorized all of them verbatim. But the person who actually did my inspection only told me to pick my 2 favorites and then recite those verbatim. That's for the leadership traits. You also have to make sure that you can quickly give them answers like, who was the first MCPON? What's the birth date of the United States Navy? What's the birth date of the U.S. Marine Corps? Who was the first commandant of the U.S. Marine Corps? You have to know everything that's in Appendix Charlie, and they don't usually ask you too many questions, but I know that for a couple of classes after mine, there were several people who had to redo 6th week, and to have to redo 6th week is just not fun. It's like the easiest inspection. There's no physical activity. It's just a lot of standing. There was a girl in my company who did almost pass out during this inspection because it does involve a lot of standing. Let me just put it this way. When you're at OCS, it is not the time to be counting calories. It is not the time to be restricting your meals. You will lose weight regardless of how much you eat. I ate more than I've ever eaten in my entire life while I was at OCS, and I still lost 10 pounds. So this is not the time to eat nothing but a yogurt with a little bit of granola in it. No, this is the time to stuff your face with all of the fruit that they give you for breakfast, all of the oatmeal that you can get your hands on, whatever meat they have if you are an omnivore, all the eggs that they have if you are a vegetarian. It is so crucial that you eat while you're at OCS, because if you don't eat, then you might be doing a 6-week inspection, and the next thing you know, she went from standing to being totally down. She didn't fall down, she just squatted as low as you can possibly squat. So she just kind of dropped down, bent her knees really low, and had her head between her hands. And a couple of weeks later, so even though she was able to pass that inspection, a few weeks later, we had the mid-PRT, and the requirement for that is to achieve at least a good low, and she was not able to achieve that. And there are other people who restrict while they're at OCS, and a lot of times those people end up with broken bones because it's high impact, and if you don't feed your muscles, your bones take the strain. If you're not feeding your body, it will fail on you. The sad thing is that I really, really, really liked this girl, and she had been trying so hard. She had rolled into H Company, and then she rolled up with the class that I was in, and then because she didn't pass the mid-PRT, she rolled down, and then ultimately she was attrited because she couldn't pass it. And this was actually her second time at OCS after being attrited the first time. So I don't want to say that that's the only reason that she didn't pass, but I do think it contributed. So the events that you will experience while you in junior officer candidate phase are the in-PRT, which you must achieve a satisfactory high on in order to pass. You'll have 2 classes, and for each of those classes you will have a midterm and a final. You will also have the drill competition. You will not get rolled or pulled from the drill competition unless you do something really stupid, like jump out of formation and start doing something crazy. As long as you are participating in it, you're not going to get pulled or rolled for the drill competition. And then the last thing that you have is 6th-week inspection. You are not going to get pulled from 6th-week inspection, but you can roll for it if you fail it, and then get your second chance and then fail that as well. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you guys have any questions, comments, or concerns, please put them in the comments below. If you like this video, let me know by liking it. It lets me know that this is something that you guys are interested in me talking about. And hopefully your 2020 ended on a better note than the rest of 2020 was. I guess. I'm making this video at 5:45 in the morning on New Year's Day, so I'm really happy that 2020 is over. I'm hoping that 2021 brings a whole lot of positivity, including a whole lot of strong, powerful, and motivated naval officers. All right, see you guys later.